They say John Wick retired over a dog, a puppy named Daisy, a final gift from a dying wife, a last thread of humanity severed by stupid, greedy men who didn't know what they'd awakened. But that's not where John's story begins. That's where it ended. This is about what came before. Before Helen. Before the impossible task. Before he earned the right to even dream of walking away. This is about the night John Wick learned the price of every bullet. John Wick wasn't born, he was forged. The Ruska Roma found him as a boy. No family, no name, no past worth remembering. They gave him purpose, training, a role in the great machinery of our world. By 20, he'd become something the underworld whispered about in the dark corners of Continental hotels. Not the Baba Yaga yet, not the boogeyman. Just efficient, precise, a weapon without hesitation, but weapons aren't supposed to feel, and somewhere in those early years, John made a mistake that would haunt him forever. He became friends with someone, Viktor Petrov, older, wiser, a sniper who could thread a bullet through a keyhole at 800 yards. Viktor had survived things that would break lesser men, and he saw something in young John. Something worth protecting. They worked together for 3 years, Budapest, Berlin, that mess in Caracas that nobody talks about. Viktor taught John the difference between killing and murder, between being a weapon and being a man who happened to be very good at violence. Every bullet has a cost, John, Viktor told him once, cleaning weapons in a Prague hotel room. Not the brass and lead, the real cost. What it takes from you each time you pull that trigger. You pay now or you pay later, but you always pay. John was young, arrogant, hungry to prove himself. "I'll pay later," he'd said. Viktor just smiled, sad, knowing. Everyone does. The contract came down from the high table directly. A name, a face, a timeline. Sofia Al-Azwar. Sofia ran operations in Casablanca, managed the Continental there, commanded loyalty through respect rather than fear. She was untouchable, protected, one of ours. Which meant the contract was a test, a political execution. Someone on the high table wanted her gone and needed a weapon without conscience to pull the trigger. They chose John Wick. Viktor called him the night before. "Don't take this one. It's from the table." "I know what it is." Viktor's voice was urgent. "Sofia's got a daughter, 4 years old. You do this, you're not killing an operator, you're orphaning a child." The contract doesn't mention a daughter, because they don't want you to know. They want you clean, efficient. That's what you are to them, John. A tool. Don't let them make you one. John stood there, Viktor's words echoing against everything he'd been taught. You don't question the table, you don't refuse contracts. "I have to," he'd said finally. The silence on the other end lasted forever. "Then may God forgive you," Viktor whispered, "because this world won't." Casablanca was beautiful that night. John found Sofia at a private club near the Corniche, watched her for an hour, studying patterns. And then he saw the photo in her wallet. A little girl, dark eyes, bright smile. John's hand tightened on his weapon. Every bullet has a cost. He followed Sofia to the parking garage. She knew he was there before he raised the weapon. "Jonathan Wick," she said without turning. "They sent the prodigy. It's not personal." "It never is." She turned slowly. "You know why they want me dead, John? Because I asked questions, because I still have a conscience." Her eyes found his. "How much longer until you lose yours?" John's weapon didn't waver, but his finger hesitated. "Please," Sofia's voice cracked. "I have a daughter. She's 4. She's innocent." The shot echoed through concrete and steel. Sofia dropped, red spreading across silk. John stood there, smoking gun in hand, waiting for the satisfaction. The sense that he'd done his duty. It never came. Instead, something cracked inside his chest. Some small, essential piece of his humanity breaking off and falling into darkness. He'd just orphaned a 4-year-old girl. For orders, for approval. For a seat at a table that would never see him as anything more than a weapon. You pay now or you pay later, but you always pay. For 2 years, John worked without stopping, without thinking, trying to bury Sophia's last words under an avalanche of completed contracts, trying to drown that cracked piece of his soul in blood and purpose. Victor stopped calling. Then one night in Rome, John's phone rang. "Hello, Jonathan." "Sophia's alive?" John breathed. "Barely. You hit my vest, not my heart. I played dead long enough for you to leave. Then I disappeared, took my daughter and vanished." A pause. "But now you need to disappear too. The high table knows I survived. They know someone tipped me off, gave me armor, taught me how to fake a kill shot. They know it was Victor." Ice flooded John's veins. "No. They've issued a marker. Vigo Tarasov's holding it. Victor has 72 hours to present himself for execution. If he doesn't, they'll kill everyone he's ever trained, everyone he's ever protected. And you, John, you're at the top of that list." The phone went dead. John was already moving. He found Victor in New York, in a tiny Brooklyn apartment that smelled of gun oil and old coffee. "You knew," John said from the doorway. Victor didn't look up from cleaning his rifle. "Knew what?" "That I'd hesitate. That Sophia would see it coming. You gave her the armor, set up the whole thing. Someone had to save your soul." Victor finally looked at him, older now, tired. "You were becoming what they wanted, John. A weapon without conscience. I couldn't let that happen." "They're going to kill you." "I know. And you did it anyway." Victor stood, faced the man he'd raised like a son. "Every bullet has a cost, John. This is mine. I saved Sophia. I saved her daughter. I saved you from becoming something you'd never come back from." He smiled. "That's a price I'll pay." John's throat tightened. "I won't let them take you." "You don't have a choice. The marker's already called. By tomorrow night, there'll be 200 shooters in this city with my face memorized." Victor's hand found John's shoulder. "But you still have time. Walk away. Find something worth living for instead of just things worth killing for." John tried. He went to Vigo Tarasov, offered himself in Victor's place, offered to complete the impossible task. Vigo laughed. "Your life isn't worth Victor's, boy, not yet." So John did the only thing left. He went to war. For 3 days and 3 nights, John Wick became a force of nature. He hunted every shooter Vigo sent, every assassin who came for Victor. He moved through New York like death incarnate, leaving bodies in his wake. The Continental went on alert. The underworld held its breath. And somewhere in that carnage, somewhere in that desperate, bloody defense of the only person who'd ever treated him like he mattered, John Wick became the boogeyman. But even the boogeyman can't be everywhere at once. On the 3rd night, while John was eliminating a team in Queens, Vigo's best sniper found Victor in Brooklyn. John got there 17 minutes too late. He found Victor on the apartment floor, 4 bullets in his chest, blood pooling around him, still breathing, barely. "John," Victor coughed, red on his lips. "Took you. Long enough." John dropped to his knees, hands shaking, pressing against wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. "I'm sorry. I should have been here." "Shh." Victor touched his face, left red fingerprints on John's cheek. "You did exactly what you needed to do. I failed you." "No." Victor smiled. "You fought for me, John. You chose me over their orders, over their table. That's not failure. That's being human." "Don't leave." John's voice broke. "I don't know how to do this without you." Yes, you do. Victor's hand slipped away. Find something to fight for, not against. Find... His chest rose one last time. Find peace. And then he was gone. John went to Vigo the day after Victor died. Hollow, empty, a weapon with nothing left to lose. I'll complete your task, he said. Every target, every name, whatever it takes. Vigo studied him, this broken young man who'd become death incarnate. And after? I'm done. I walk away. I never kill again unless someone forces my hand. Bold request? It's not a request. John's eyes held nothing. No emotion, no mercy, just cold certainty. It's the price. My price. The one I choose. Vigo knew better than to argue with that look. The impossible task took John 3 months, targets across 4 continents, protection that seemed impenetrable. He killed them all, not for the table, not for glory, not even for revenge. He killed them as penance, as tribute, as a final payment on a debt he could never fully repay. When it was done, John Wick vanished. He found a small house outside the city, tried to build a life from the ruins of the man he'd been. And one day, in a veterinary clinic where he'd gone to volunteer, trying to find something pure in a world he'd stained red, he met a woman. Her name was Helen. She had kind eyes, a gentle laugh. She saw him as just a man, not a weapon, not the boogeyman, just John. She never knew about Victor, about Sophia, about the debt John carried in his chest like shrapnel. But she loved him anyway. And for 5 beautiful years, John Wick found something he thought he'd never have again. Peace. You know the rest. How Helen got sick, how she gave him Daisy, how Iosef Tarasov killed that last piece of hope and dragged John back into the darkness. But here's what the legends don't tell you. Every bullet John fired in his rampage of revenge, through the Red Circle, through the church, through every army Vigo threw at him, he saw Victor's face, heard his voice. Find something to fight for, not against. That's the tragedy of John Wick. He spent his entire life trying to pay for one terrible mistake, trying to balance scales that can never be balanced, trying to earn a peace that was never his to claim. Victor taught him that every bullet has a cost. Sophia's daughter taught him what that cost really means. Helen taught him it was possible to live despite it. And Daisy taught him that some prices are worth paying over and over again, because the debt before the dog wasn't about money or markers or the high table's rules. It was about a young man who killed the wrong person for the wrong reasons and spent the rest of his life trying to become someone worthy of forgiveness. They say John Wick is the boogeyman, Baba Yaga, the man you send to kill the boogeyman. But the truth, John Wick is just a man trying to pay a debt that can never be paid. A weapon that learned to feel. A killer who discovered too late the weight of every bullet. And somewhere in whatever comes after all this blood and darkness, Victor is waiting, proud of the man his student became. Proud that John finally learned the lesson. You don't pay for peace. You fight for it. You bleed for it. You become the monster so the ones you love can stay human. That's the debt before the dog. That's the price John Wick carries. And that is why he can never stop.